So, does anyone else feel like January lasted like 5 months? Because I know I did. I don't know if that's why I ended up reading 12 books this past month. I was on one in January, and I'm gonna tell you about all 12 of the books that I read. Crazy, don't know what I was on, but we're gonna discuss all of them today. I have one stack of books next to me. This is not all of the books that I read because a lot of them I read on Kindle, so I don't have physical copies of them. I'm gonna get into my January reads, but before that, I'm also going to let you guys in on what I read in the last few months of 2025, because apparently like a couple of you guys actually do want to know what I read in those months. And because I didn't do a wrap up for like the last 3 months of the year, I'm just gonna like give you a quick rundown of each book that I read. It's not a lot. In total, I think we're gonna be talking about maybe 15 books in this video. So with that being said, I feel like I shouldn't waste any more time. Let's get into this. Let's go all the way back to October, because I think that's when I stopped doing my wrap-ups. If I remember correctly, the first book I read was Picture of Dorian Gray. This is the classic, the one and only by Oscar Wilde, and this was supposed to be my classic for September, and then I think I pushed it off for too long, and then I didn't get it done until like the beginning of October, which is why I'm gonna be talking about 2 classics that I read in October. And this is one of them. I had such a good time with this. Oh my god, it's my first time reading it. So I was going into it with like pretty high expectations, I'm not gonna lie, because this is one of my best friend's favorite classics, and she's been begging me to read it like all year. Ever since I told her that I was trying to get into more classics in 2025, she was pulling at me all year to read this, and I finally did. So I'm gonna tell you guys about it. We are following the character Dorian, who has a dilemma. He is not okay with getting old. He does not think that his beauty will withstand over time. He does not think that people will gravitate towards him as he gets older. And so like he just has like this inner conflict with him and aging and like just growing in general as a person. And so when one of his colleagues paints a self-portrait of him, he finds out that this self-portrait is not just an ordinary self-portrait. The portrait has swapped mortality with him, meaning that as he gets older through time, the painting is going to age, but Dorian is not going to. He is going to stay young forever. And throughout the story, you kind of see him go through the ups and downs of what that's like, of like never actually growing. Like you feel like you're mentally growing, but you're not physically growing. You're not really getting older while everyone else in your life is passing you by. I absolutely adored this book. I don't think I put a review down for it in Storygraph. Just so you know, I did really love it. I gave it 4 stars. It's definitely one of my favorite classics that I read last year. It's really short and sweet, and the message is straight to the point, but you also kind of get so into the story that you don't even mind how short it really is. Like it all wraps up in a pretty little bow in the end for Dorian Gray and his whole inner conflict, and it was just like really beautiful. I might reread this year just so I can like annotate it. My first read, I was just trying to take it all in of what the story was about, what I was supposed to take away from it, but I think on my second read I kind of just want to like go in for fun with a little pen and just highlight quotes that I liked in here, because there are a few, but I can't remember them word for word off the top of my head. Definitely a highlight of my year is being able to read the one and only Picture of Dorian Gray. Next classic I read is one that I brought up in a previous video. I actually think I brought up like multiple of these next few books in a video before, because I was briefly mentioning books that I read at the end of 2025 in like my most recent videos, but then I never actually told you guys about them. I just briefly mentioned that they are books that I read. So this isn't gonna come as a shock to you if you've been watching my videos. But I also read Frankenstein, the 1818 text by Mary Shelley. I was reading this in preparation for the movie that came out, Guillermo del Toro. His version of it came out with like Jacob Elordi, Oscar Isaac. You guys know. If you know, you know. So before that movie came out, I was like, why don't I read the book? Because I've actually never read Frankenstein. I knew about the story, but I didn't know about the story. Like, I think that we all know about Frankenstein, but like actually reading it, never did. So I picked it up and I wanted to read the 1818 text just so I can get like really into what the heck Mary Shelley was talking about. I don't know how this version is different from the original version, if I'm being honest. Or maybe this is the original version. I don't know how they're different, but I would recommend the 1818 text. I really like this book. What did I end up giving it? Okay, I gave this 4.5 stars. This is a beautifully tragic story about Frankenstein, a man who wants to create life because he hasn't properly grieved the death of his mother. So he's like, how can I bring her back to life? So he makes a test subject out of this creature to see how this one being fares as like a human being in the world after being brought back to life from the dead. And it just kind of goes downhill from there. It's a story about the meaning of life and how beautiful it can be, but also how hard it can be when you are not accepted by people because of your upbringing, how you look, etc., etc. And it's also about fatherhood in like this weird way that I wasn't expecting. Again, I knew about Frankenstein mostly because of the creature character. I did not know about like the actual story itself. So going into this, I was actually surprised how much like the motif of fatherhood and parenting can impact a child. It was like constantly brought up throughout the story of how Frankenstein decided to parent this creature, or I guess not parent the creature, and what that ended up doing to the creature's psyche. This creature who just wanted to be loved and accepted by the person who created him, just to get turned away and turned down by everyone else who he meets in his life. And it's just like, it's a really sad story, but I really liked it. This was also one of my favorite classics of last year. I think it was beautifully written. Honestly, I want to read more of Mary Shelley. I know that she's written like a few other books. I would gladly check those out when I have the time to this year, because this, I'm shocked. I'm actually really surprised at how much I ended up loving this, but also like, I don't know why. I just wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did. And I'm glad that I ended up reading it. As one of my last classics of 2025, I feel like I ended out the year with a bang with the classics that I chose. So Frankenstein, the 1818 text by Mary Shelley. Go read it if you haven't. Also go watch the movie. The movie, it's so good. It's so good. There are changes that were made in the story, but I feel like the changes weren't too drastic and also made sense with the story. So like, if you're looking for a really good classic adaptation, in my opinion, I think you guys should go check out the movie on Netflix. I briefly mentioned this in like my 2025 reading wrap up video. I read Batman Elmer Fudd comic by Tom King. This is just a comic that my friend wanted me to read because he wanted me to get into comics last year, and I was like, sure. I was like, sure, give me something entertaining, and he gave me this one. And there's nothing I can really say about it that I haven't already said in the previous video. It's like a 60-page comic, The Dark Knight Batman and Elmer Fudd from Looney Tunes. And it's like wacky, it's ridiculous, but it's actually like a really good story. It's like 2 short stories in one little comic, and I gave it 4 stars because I enjoyed both of the stories. And yeah, it's just like a wacky idea. And then when I read the author's note at the back of how this idea even came to be, I was even more invested. I kind of want more volumes if they are willing to do this again. Yeah, if you want like something quick and easy to read, like if you're into comics, graphic novels, and all that kind of stuff, I would recommend Batman Elmer Fudd. So this is when we're gonna get into the nitty gritty of it all. I, just like everyone else at the end of the year, got really invested and obsessed with Heated Rivalry. So you know what I had to do. I read the books. I did not read all of them. I only read the first 2. So let's talk about Game Changers. This is the first book in the Game Changers series. If you guys don't know what Heated Rivalry is or the Game Changers series is, I'm a little confused. Like, are you really living under a rock? But basically, we're following hockey players in this series. Hockey players from like all different kinds of teams. We're not just following one team. We're following like global teams around the world, okay? And basically, it's kind of like the NHL. But in the show, I think that they change it to something else, like the MLH or whatever. It doesn't matter. Each book follows an MM couple, and that's basically what it's about. And The first book, Game Changers, I watched this because, again, I'm obsessed with the show. And in the first season of the show, we follow specifically, of course, Ilya and Shane, but there's one side couple that's also highlighted in the show that don't really get much screen time, but when they do, it's actually really cute. And I was like, you know what? Let me read their book. And turns out their book is the first in the series. So I was like, okay. We're following Scott and Kip in this first book. Scott is like golden boy of the hockey league, okay? Everyone loves him or hates him. There's no in between. But he's kind of like the poster child for the NHL in this series, okay? So he, because of that, has to hide his sexuality because he doesn't want that to be like the main thing people talk about when they talk about his success as a very talented hockey player. And so he's like, he knows about his sexuality, he knows who he is, but he's never been in an actual relationship until Kip comes in. Kip is a college grad student working at a smoothie shop who just so happens to come across Scott Hunter at his smoothie shop, and they end up hitting it off, getting along, sooner rather than later dating, and this book just follows their story from there. And you know, their story is cute. I feel like people hate on Scott and Kip so much simply because they're not Shane and Ilya, and I think that you guys are doing too much. I think that this story is really cute. I didn't give it like an outstanding rating. I gave it like 3.5 stars. You know, nothing is going to compare to the show, in my opinion, and I do feel like the show, like I said, they're not the main couple. So the show highlighted them in ways that were more like show and not tell, in my opinion. I feel like the show kind of did them a disservice in a way, but it's fine. It's fine. The book itself, I thought was good. The thing with this one though is I'm not really a fan of insta love, and I do feel like that's what the story gave. They fell for each other way too fast, in my opinion. And I think this book takes place over the span of like 3 months, yet it felt like they were getting into it with each other within a week. It was very strangely paced, their relationship. And again, that just might be because I'm not a fan of insta love, so I just wasn't really here for that. And I did enjoy Shane's story of like overcoming his fear of coming out as a pro hockey player. I thought that that was like the best part of this story, but I also feel like it kind of got buried under all the smut. There was like a lot of smut in this book, and obviously these are like smutty hockey romance books, so I'm not complaining that they're smut. I knew that going into it, but I don't know, for it to be the first book in the series that's supposed to tell stories about like hockey players and like getting comfortable in their sexuality and coming out, when this sport is all about like masculinity and trying to balance your masculinity with your sexuality, with your identity, and all of this stuff. It's a very interesting series to watch on my screen, but to also read, because obviously I'm not really a stranger to sports romances, as you guys know, but I've never really delved into like a gay sports romance, and I didn't realize that until I started reading these books. So I thought it would touch heavily on like the internal conflicts of what it means to be a hockey player and what the persona of that is versus like who the players are in their day-to-day lives. And this didn't really do that. It tried. It hit some points that were great, and then others it just didn't hit. I also feel like the story went on for too long. I don't know why the story is as long as it is when like there's little to nothing happening in it. Like once they start dating, there's like no conflict until like maybe the last 10%. And I'm like, all that to say, I gave this a 3.5, and we can move on now. So let's talk about the real star of the show, Heated Rivalry. I read this in December as well, and wow, what a time. What a time. Not gonna lie, there's not much to say about this because the show adapted it perfectly, in my opinion. Like this is one of the few adaptations that I feel like really lived up to its source material, because reading this while also like watching the show as it came out, I was just like, this is like bar for bar, word for word. And so I obviously really liked it. I gave this book a 4-star. Shane and Ilya, I can't wait for them to come back to my screen. I need that high again. I think we all do. I think that we're all kind of going through like the absence of heated rivalry in our lives, which is fine. It's fine. I needed a break. I have nothing else to say about this book that probably hasn't been said by a majority of people who have read it and watched the show. It's just really good. It follows Shane and Ilya two hockey players on like rival hockey teams that end up having a secret friends with benefits relationship, but they're not really friends. They're like rivals with benefits. So like whenever they're competing against each other and they're in the same town, they sleep together. And then we see that over the span of like 10 years of them slowly building a relationship through like these small meetings that they have with each other every time they compete. And it's so good. It's so good. I know I'm not doing it justice by that one little description, but I honestly don't want to say too much, because if you haven't read this book or watched the show, I highly recommend. If I'm being honest, I recommend the show more than the book. The book is fine. The book is honestly, again, another like hockey romance book. It's not really all that special to me. I think I'm just really biased about it because in this one instance, think that the show is better than the book in almost every way. So you should go check that out. Now let's get on to another romance that I read in December. You guys know, before the end of the year, I wanted to finish the Windy City series by Liz Tomford, and that's exactly what I did. I read Rewind It Back, and oh my god. In this book, we are following Rio, one of my favorite characters in this series. So he is a member of this hockey team that we kind of get glimpses of throughout the series, but mostly in the first book, where we follow Xander, who is the love interest of the first book, but is also a part of the same hockey team as Rio. Rio is down on his luck when it comes to romance. You kind of see him throughout this series struggle to find a partner, someone that he wants to like share a life with and, you know, just be romantic with. He's kind of a lover boy in like the best way. Love that man down. He's a lover boy to his core. So like you see him throughout the series dating, going out, like seeing his friends all couple up and him just wanting that happily ever after for himself, and he can never seem to find it. In walks Hallie, Rio's ex-girlfriend slash high school sweetheart slash childhood best friend. So yeah, hitting all of the classic tropes with this one, all of them. She's back in town to get into her interior designing bag. She is an intern at a very big like interior design agency, and it turns out that she gets a really big project, and that project is to redo Rio's house. Like he wants his house remodeled so that he can move, getting it remodeled and redone, can put it higher on the market. So she accepts this, not knowing that it's Rio's house. And then they meet up with each other, and because she agreed to do this project, they see each other, they cross paths all the time. She is also his next door neighbor, ironically enough, so they literally can't escape each other even if they tried. And it's just really good. It's really good. Oh my god. I think this is the book with the most tension in the entire series. And I say that with love because you guys know I adore the tension. And I didn't think it could get better. But then I read this book and I was like, oh, so this is what you're gonna do. This is what we do. Okay, cool. I wasn't aware of your game. I wasn't aware of your pen. So yeah, she managed to write these two characters that know each other so well to the point where there was just no real miscommunication. Like, yes, there was conflict with any second chance romance. There's conflict because like, why did you break up in the first place? You know, it's one of those stories, but because Rio knows Hallie so well and Hallie knows him, they can kind of read each other like a book. So I did not have to worry about like any real miscommunication between these two, which was so refreshing, because it's one of my least favorite things in romance books, the miscommunication trope. It honestly like ruins a book for me sometimes, but with these two, I did not have to worry about it. Yeah, this was very close to being a 5-star. I think the only reason why I didn't give it a 5-star is because it's a little bit unrealistic, but it didn't even stop me from like loving it, so I don't really care. I just think that Rio is one of the best book boyfriends I've ever read, and I can't wait to reread this book. I can't wait. I'm taking time away from the Windy City series because I know that Liz Tomford is dropping like a spin-off book in the series next month. So I'm gonna get well fed in like less than a month's time. I'm not even all that worried, but I'm not touching the first 5 books until that book comes out. Yeah, definitely one of the best books in the series in my opinion. If I had to rank them now that they're all out, I would probably say Play Along is my top fave. Rewind It Back and Mile High are competing for second place. Don't make me choose between the two of them. I don't know. And then I would probably say The Right Move and then Caught Up, I think that's my ranking. Let's get on to the next book. This is the last book I read in the year. Another one that I briefly mentioned in one of my previous videos. A Love Letter to Whiskey by Candy Steiner. Yeah, this book is one that I read over like Christmas. Like I think it was like Christmas Eve and Christmas I started and finished this book, and my god, I don't know why I did that to myself. If you guys don't know what this book is about, B and Jamie have been friends since high school, and they met through B's best friend because Jamie is B's best friend's boyfriend. So it follows the best friend's boyfriend trope, which I did not know. I did not know that it followed that trope. So I kind of went into this book so blind. Literally all I knew about this book was that it's angsty and that it could break my heart, and because of that I jumped at the chance of reading it. However, I'm still gagged at what I read. Anyway, yeah, it follows that trope, and we kind of follow these two characters, B and Jamie, throughout like the span of 10-15 years of their lives, like from teenage era to like adulthood era, where they're just trying to find their way. Like they still maintain their friendship throughout college, and you know, throughout their friendship they face a lot of ups and downs of trying to figure out their feelings for each other and how to be with each other, because it never seems to be the right time. Every time they confess their feelings or think that they're ready for a relationship, something gets in the way, which also makes it right person wrong time trope. And my god, another trope that I'm just not familiar with, so I went in not knowing anything. Yeah, we're kind of just following this very, I wouldn't, is it toxic? I would say it's toxic. This book, what did I give this book? A 3.5 stars. Yeah, I enjoyed the messiness of this book, I will say, because I'm a messy girl. I love my romances to be messy. I can do a fluff, but I love some angst and I love some mess. And let me tell you, Jamie and B, some of the messiest characters I've read in a romance. This is true. This is true. I can confidently say that this might be the most frustrating romance I've read. The amount of times that the characters got into their own way when it comes to actually pursuing a relationship got a bit ridiculous after some point. Like, you see how long this book is? This book is like, what, 500 pages? And I love a slow burn. I love a long romance. You guys know this about me. So this should have been really up my alley. A lot of angst, long romance, slow burn. Love that. However, I really don't like when characters get in their own way. Like the self-sabotage in this book, when it came to their own happiness, made me so upset. And that makes them flawed characters, which there's nothing wrong with. But what makes me really mad is when they not only self-sabotage themselves but also others, because obviously over the span of like 10-15 years of following these two, you see them in other relationships, building other relationships with people, knowing that they are still in love with each other. So it's like, it's one of the most frustrating things to me. I hate cheaters. I do. Like, whether it's like physically cheating, emotionally cheating, I don't care. That was all up in this book, and it made me really upset. I didn't even know if I really wanted to root for them by the end, but by that point I was too far into the book to just give up now. I needed to make sure that they got together. It's good if you really like angst, wrong person, wrong time, and just two messy bitches looking at each other going, exactly, you know, like if you really like that stuff in your romance, I would recommend. If you don't touch this book with a 10-foot pole. I'm so serious. I'm trying to help you. A certain type of person is able to get through this book. I am one of those people. I will say this book is also really long because I guess for the 5th anniversary edition, which I got, the author released extra chapter or two in Jamie's point of view, because this whole entire book is in B's point of view, right? So we get a few chapters at the end following Jamie and his side of their story specifically, and I did not read that. So who knows, maybe if I read that I would have probably bumped it up higher, but by the time I finished the story I was like, enough. I was like, enough, you guys have stressed me out enough. I'm not reading anymore. Maybe I will go back and read Jamie's chapters though, because I am curious about like what he went through every time that they got separated or pulled apart, but I can't pick it up right now. I can't. We have finally made it to January. I've already been talking for 30 minutes and we still have 12 more books to get through. This is gonna be so much fun. In January, like I said, I read 12 books, and honestly a pretty good reading month. I don't think I gave anything below like 30 stars. Let's get started, shall we? I read One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. You guys know I wanted to read this before the end of 2025 and I didn't, so I read it in January. There's another book in here that's exactly like that, where I wanted to read it in 2025 and I didn't, so I read it at the beginning of 2026 just to get it out of the way. So One Dark Window by Rachel Gillick. This is my first Rachel Gillick book. I went in with honestly like mid expectations. I didn't want to get too consumed by like the hype of this duology, because if you guys know, then you know, like this duology is really big on like specifically the romantasy side of book talk, and I didn't want to listen to any opinions until I picked it up myself. So I finally did. And where do I start? I guess I should tell you guys what it's about. This book follows Elspeth. I know, weird name. I don't like her name, but whatever. This book follows Elspeth, and she lives in a city, a small town called Blunder. This city is blocked off by the rest of the world because it is cursed with an enchanted forest or like some dark woods. I don't know how you would describe it, but basically this city is centered around a barrier of woods that are cursed. So basically if someone were to walk into the woods, they would get, I don't know if you would say possessed or sick or whatever, but everyone knows you don't go into those woods unless you want something really bad to happen to you, right? And so because of this, Elspeth has kind of been hidden away her whole life because she is one of the kids who fell victim to being in the woods. But she is alive. She lived. She is 18 in this book, and the one thing that the woods gave her was a monster in her head. So she has this one little guy in her head always talking to her, but this little guy in her head also has powers that protect her from people who are onto her and her thing inside of her, basically, because like there are like rules in this town, in this kingdom, where basically if you are someone who has fallen victim to the woods, you are going to die at the hands of the king's words. And so she's been hiding all her life with her aunt and her cousins, and her dad is actually a knight. He's a knight for the kingdom. And so to keep her out of harm's way and to decrease suspicion, he brings her over to her aunt's, and so that's where she's been living for the past like 10 years. Let's flash forward to present time. Right now she is minding her own business with a little monster in her head. They've become accustomed to each other. They have like really honestly funny banter. The best part of this book was seeing the relationship that the monster and Elspeth have with each other. I thought that was really interesting. One day she gets bombarded by highwaymen who are trying to steal from her. I don't really know what they were trying to do. I can't remember. But one of them ends up being the nephew of the king. And he's like, hey, we need your help. We know about your power that you have, and we need that in order to get rid of the curse that has fallen upon Blunder over the past century. And she's confused because she doesn't really know how they found out about her power. Basically, the monster in her head has a power where he can tell you which person in the kingdom has other power based off of the cards that they have. Think of tarot cards. That's kind of the magic system here. If someone has a specific tarot card, then they have a power that comes with it. And only the monster in her head can see which person has a card. And so if they get all of these cards in one deck, then they will have the power to get rid of whatever curse has fallen upon this city. And Elspeth is like, I don't really want to do that, but also like, I guess I should do it, because once she gets the deck, she could also get rid of this curse that's fallen upon her with the monster in her head. So she agrees to help them. They kind of go on a mission to get every single card in the deck. Did you follow that? I feel like I went on like a whole circle trying to explain that, but yeah, that's what One Dark Window is about. I really enjoyed this book for the magic system. I've never read a book centered around like tarot based magic. I think that that's really interesting. Granted, they don't call them tarot cards, but that's what it is. And I thought it was really cool. I also think Rachel Gillick's writing style is so, it's eerie, it's haunting, it's dark, and it's mysterious. And I really liked it. You would think that you're reading a horror based off of the way that she writes, but no, it's like, it is fantasy, but it's very like atmospheric, and I mess with that. I think that was also my favorite part about reading this, was just to read her writing. I think that her pen is amazing. However, I will say the biggest downside of this was the romance. Guys, you know I don't mess with insta love, and that's kind of what it gave. You could say it's enemies to lovers. It's not though. Like, you know immediately when these two characters meet each other, they want each other so bad, to the point where like when they do get together, I was like, finally. Not because like I was like, oh my god, yeah, they're finally together. I'm like, finally, can we get to the actual plot of the book? Like every time the romance was brought up, I was like, ugh. Like, let's go find these cards. I was more invested in like the actual plot of getting the cards as opposed to like the romance, which took up honestly like more of the book than I would have liked, especially because this is a duology. So I was like, can we please follow the story more? Enough with the romance, especially because I think the main love interest, his name is Raven, he doesn't really do anything for me at all. I couldn't really understand their attraction to each other. It didn't really make any sense to me. So yeah, but I really like this. What did I give it? I gave it 3.5 stars as well. So yeah, I have not read the sequel yet. I might get to that this month. It's on my Kindle ready to go. I just haven't touched it yet because I'm in the middle of like other books right now, but I kind of do want to finish it because it's a duology and that's one less series that I'll have to tackle that's on my shelf. So yeah, expect a review of that soon. Next is a book that was on my anticipated releases of the year, and I'm so happy that I got to read it. This is actually an audiobook arc that I got through my job. So yeah, I was surprised that they had this, but I'm not upset about it. I read So Old, So Young by Grant Gender. This is a literary fiction that follows a group of friends from when they are in college up until they are like in their early 40s, and we're just following these like 5 or 6 different people and their perspectives on life and how what's happening in their own personal lives has impacted their friendships and relationships and what that means for them as a group down the line. I like the premise of it because it's not just like the typical book where we're following characters throughout their lives. We only see them at parties. So like, for example, we start off the book when they're in college at a New Year's Eve party, and then there's another chapter like 5 years later where we see them at like an engagement party, and then the next one is like a housewarming party, you know. So like we only ever see them at parties. We never see them outside of like party functions, and I thought that that was really cool. I like the premise of it, but I will say I gave this book 2 stars. This book was so annoying. And I think that's the point of it. I know it's supposed to show like imperfect characters and how aging and growing up out of like friendships is okay and how like changing over time is okay, but I can tell you right now there are maybe only 2 characters that I liked wholeheartedly out of like the 6 people that we were following. So it wasn't all that fun of a read for me, I'm gonna be honest. Each chapter that passed, each part that we were in, each party we were at, it's obvious that the characters are aging because they're like getting a new job, they're now about to get married. So like you see them at different stages of their lives, but it just felt like they weren't aging at all. Like, I'm not gonna lie, as I was reading the book, I was like, sometimes these characters sound like they're still in their 20s, and it was really making me upset. Like, there was no real growth, I feel like, with any of these characters. They're still trying to keep their youth after all of these years, and it's actually kind of sad. Crazy, because like I said with Dorian Gray, how like at the end he learns a message about aging and how that's okay. You didn't really see that with most of these characters. Like, by the end of the book, I think they got the lesson, but I don't think they got it actually. It's not really explicitly said throughout the book what age the characters are throughout. All you know is that you start the book when like they're in college, and then it'll tell you the year. So like by the end of the book, I think it's in like set in 2024. And so it was very hard for me to keep up with who is what age and whatever, because they were all so immature. All of the characters. They were so infuriating to read. Like I said, I feel like there were no like clear signs of them growing up besides like their professions, the families that they make over time. It just felt like they were still stuck in their 20s, and maybe that is the message of the book, because I was trying to understand the message that the author was giving throughout the story as well, because I couldn't really understand it. I didn't get it, but maybe the message was just like, what did I say? I put it in my review. It felt like they were still 20 something towards the end of the book, and maybe that is the message, that while you may age, the way you live your life is all about the mindset you have. You could be young with an old soul or old with a youthful spirit. So maybe that's what he was trying to do. I don't know. I was trying to actually give this book the benefit of the doubt, especially by the time I reviewed it, because my review was like kind of long. I don't know if you can see that. Like, every time something bad happened to a character, I never really felt bad because they kept on doing things that I was like, why are you doing that? This book is about like a whole lot of adults having midlife crises and not actually dealing with it for 20 years. It's insufferable to read about. I'm not gonna lie. Like, the only thing I liked about this book was maybe the ending, and even then it's not worth reading. So yeah, I gave this book 2 stars. Would not recommend, sadly, which makes me, again, sad because it was one of my anticipated releases of the year. If you end up reading this book, let me know how you feel. What are your takeaways from it? Because I'm still trying to figure out what that author was trying to tell me. Next book is one that I read simply because I was watching a C-drama that referenced this book. And that's all there is to it. If you guys watched my previous vlog, I told you guys how I am currently watching C-dramas right now. I'm in my C-drama bag slash K-drama bag, but mostly C-dramas. And one of my favorite C-dramas that I've watched recently, The First Frost, mentioned the book Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit by Jeanette Winterson. And because I was so deep into my First Frost bag, I was like, I should read that, simply because one of the characters brought it up. I'm not joking. That's the only reason why I picked up this book. And I have thoughts on it, but I don't really know how to convey my thoughts and put them into words. I'm a little bit frazzled by this book to the point where I don't think I gave it a review. Yeah, I didn't give it a star review. I wrote down what I thought, but I did not give this book a review because I think it's a very hard book to give a review based off of like a star rating. So let me just tell you what my thoughts were in my story graph. I'm gonna read it to you word for word, okay? Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit is a lyrical coming of age autofiction following the author's life growing up in a religious household while slowly coming to terms with who she is outside of her beliefs and how those two things combat each other. This is a weird story with even weirder pacing. I liked being able to read about someone's experience in an evangelical household as someone who is myself agnostic and lived in a household that allowed religious freedom. That aspect of the book was the most interesting because I like reading about characters that go through that sort of dilemma of having a religious belief system that's all they know while also trying to discover who they are outside of that. However, I'm not really sure how to rate it because I feel like this book is incomplete. I understand the message to some extent, but I feel like ending the story like that was odd. Like I said, everything about the pacing of the book was already one of the weakest points. I couldn't keep up with how old Jeanette was in the story. I just had to make guesses due to context clues, but I would have liked definitive ages to show where I was at in the story. I also just think the parts of the book that had little side stories that related to what Jeanette was going through while not having anything to do with the story itself felt out of place and also made the overall story feel discombobulating. I liked the parallels, but I feel like it made the fast-paced story unnecessarily slow. I'm still trying to figure out how to rate this book. While there were things I liked about it, that's a typo. There were other things that made the story unfulfilling to me. So yeah, that's my thoughts on this book in a nutshell. I wish I could tell you more. Like, I gave you the gist. It follows the author and how she grew up in a very religious community and her slowly realizing that everything that she was taught in her life isn't really what she wants to follow in her adulthood and how she comes to terms with that. And yeah, I just thought that this book was really, it was good when it was good, and when it wasn't, it was not. And I don't know how to rate it because it's a book that sat with me all month because it's bothering me that I don't know how to rate this book because it's not a 5-star, but it's not like a 1-star either, but I don't think it'd be a 3-star. If you guys have read this book, let me know because I know it's a kind of popular. I don't know. It's seen as like a modern classic to some, and I did not know that going in. Again, I only picked it up because of The First Frost, so I did not know what to expect. But I read it because one of the lines from the book is quoted in the show, and I was like, that's one of the most romantic quotes I think I've ever seen. I need to know what book that's from. And so I picked it up and I got a lot more than I was expecting, for better or for worse. So yeah, if you have read this book, let me know your thoughts because I would love to know. Ooh, okay, we're getting into the nitty gritty. We're getting into the books that I'm actually really excited to talk about. Let's get into it. Let's talk about The Summer Hikaru Died by Moku Mokurin. I think that's how you pronounce the author's name. If it's not, I'm so sorry. I read the first 3 volumes of this series. I read volumes 1, 2, and 3, and my God, my goodness. I talked about this again briefly in my previous vlog if you guys want to check it out. I told you guys that I'm loving this series so far, and I also said I would finish it because there are only 6 volumes out, and at that point in the vlog, like I said, I read the first 3. I decided I want to take my time with it, so I think I'm gonna read the other 3 this month because it was getting too good and I just didn't want to finish it. In this manga series, we are following 2 best friends, Yoshiki and Hikaru. Hikaru ended up disappearing for a week during the summer and people thought that he died. He did not. He ended up coming back to town, and Yoshiki is noticing something weird about Hikaru. Like, something's off with his childhood bestie. He's not the same. And this isn't a spoiler. You find out within like the first like page that that is not Hikaru. And Yoshiki doesn't really know what to do about this because he sees his best friend in front of him, but he knows that that's not his best friend. So he doesn't know if he's supposed to go through the 5 stages of grief or to just like be happy that his best friend is still in front of him and looks well and happy, even though inside that's not the person that he's known his whole life. And it's just about trying to discover what this being is, like who is this new Hikaru and what happened to the old one. But then it's also a story about like friendship friendship between the old Hikaru and this new Hikaru that has taken over his body. A very nuanced tale about how to process and handle grief when the person you're grieving is still in front of you, in front of your eyes, living a life. It's very interesting, and yeah, I gave each volume 5 stars, I think. Yeah, I gave each volume 5 stars. No notes. If you guys want a new manga to get obsessed with, I highly recommend this one. I read it because my coworker really wanted me to watch the anime, but I saw that there were only 6 volumes of it out, so I was like, let's just see what this is. And I'm so happy I picked up the manga. So happy. I don't even think it's supposed to be a long series. I think they're only going to be 10 volumes, so I'm so sad, ready, waiting for the rest of them to come out. And I will be watching the anime as well, but I'm gonna wait till I'm all caught up to like volume 6 and then I'm gonna watch it. So the summer Hikaru died. If you want like a kind of creepy, spooky, weird story about 2 childhood best friends that have like a lot of tension between the 2 of them, check it out. The next book I read is a prequel novella to N.K. Jemison's duology, The Great Cities duology. I think that's what it's called. This is the novella The City Born Great, and this follows a character who is able to connect to the city of New York through graffiti art, and he is sent on a mission to save this city because apparently something's after, like some dark evil thing is after the city of New York, and he needs to make sure that the city is born again, or else the dark stuff is going to take it. I wish I could explain this book properly. I still don't know how to explain what this is really. The city of New York is in great danger unless it gets reborn again, and the only person who can do it is this homeless guy who is just trying to live his life on a day-to-day. He has literally nothing to his name. He does not want this power, but he is given it, and he's like, okay, I guess I gotta save this place, because while this city doesn't look out for people like me, a black man on the street, I feel like someone needs to look out for this beautiful city. And so he takes it upon himself to save it before this great evil thing comes and destroys it. And I gave this novella 4 stars. I feel like I didn't sell that well, but just know this is a really good novella. I read it for free on a website because I think that N.K. Jemisin posted this as like a little short story, and then people were demanding that she make it a full story. So the duology is published. I think the first book came out in 2020. I own both of them on my shelves, and I just wanted to, you know, get a feel of what N.K. Jemisin's writing was. So when I saw that this novella existed, I was like, okay, let me read it. And I can already tell that I'm going to be obsessed with N.K. Jemisin's writing based off of this like 20-page novella alone. For a short story, it really packed a punch. I did not know anything going into it. I didn't even know what this duology was about. You guys know I had 5th season on the mind for what I wanted to read first by N.K. Jemisin because I own the 5th season as well. But I just really wanted to know what her writing was like without getting fully into a new book. So yeah, I didn't know what I was expecting, but it was not this. And I mean that in the best way possible, okay? The way that N.K. Jemisin was able to personify the city of New York, crazy. Like, it felt like its own character. The way that the main character was able to talk to it through the art that he was making and defend it and feel the power coming from the city communicating to him. I've never read a book like that, and I think that that's so cool. I also like how you cannot mistake this character, this main character, for any other race except black. This book is black as hell. The character had such a unique voice. It's kind of hard for me to get into some characters if I feel like their voices all blend together. But with a character like this, the one that we're following in this prequel series, this prequel novella, his voice stands out so much. And it's only in his point of view. We're not following multiple point of views in this, but I feel like he's such a character. And he made me laugh, he made me tear up. Like, learning about his life in like the span of 20 pages was just like, I'm so connected to him, and I hope that we see him more in the duology going forward, because I would like to know more. Yeah, I really loved it. I gave it 4 stars, and I'm not gonna lie, that's another duology that I really want to get to this month, but we'll see. I don't know if I'll be able to read at the same pace I was last month. Again, I don't know what I was on, but I really want to. So next book is one that I covered in my vlog that I keep mentioning. In that vlog, I was reading multiple books at the same time, if you couldn't tell. So yeah, I already talked about this next book, but I'll talk about it again, I guess, very briefly. Half His Age by Jeanette McCurdy. I got the audio arc for this as well, and I read it like a week before it came out, because it's only 4 hours, the audio. So I was like, oh, this could be quick and easy. It took me 3 days to get through that audiobook because I felt so gross listening to it, but I did end up finishing it. I gave it 3 stars. If you don't know what this book is about, it follows a teenage girl, Waldo, and a very inappropriate relationship she gets in with her teacher, Mr. Corgi, and it's really gross. And it's definitely not an easy read at all, but I would recommend it, I think, if you are into literary fiction that touches on these sort of things. I don't think, oh, I did not give it a review. If you watch my vlog, I said everything I needed to say about it there, but yeah, it was just, Jeanette McCurdy has a great way of making like the most disturbing stories even more like vivid than you can actually picture in your head. Her characters in this book, specifically the main character, Waldo, is very depressed, comes from an unstable environment with her single mom who is never really around to raise her, who's always out with a new guy all the time, and she doesn't really have many friends. She has one friend, but she doesn't really bond with her. So like the one person she goes to is this teacher who takes advantage of her, and it's just a really heartbreaking story, honestly. But again, it's just so graphic that it made me a little like, it's definitely not romanticizing it at all. The reason I gave it a 3 star is because I don't know how to feel about that ending. It left me feeling hollow in a way. I didn't really understand the message of what Jeanette McCurdy was trying to say at the end. And if you've read this book, let me know what you think about the ending. But I just feel like all of a sudden we were in it and then we were out of it, and there was no real resolution, no conclusion. It was just over. And I feel like after putting me through that for 4 hours, I would have liked some sort of actual ending. Hot take, I guess. I don't know what people have been saying about this book. I haven't looked at any other reviews, so seriously, if you have read it, let me know what you felt about it, or how you felt about it in the comments below. This is another book I've been thinking about for the past few weeks because I don't know what to say about it. I just shivers down my spine. It makes me so uncomfortable, but that was the point of the book. So kudos to Jeanette McCurdy for that. Like I said, her pen, I think she was always born to write. If this is like how she's going to write stories moving forward, I think that she does a good job of that. Next book I read is the first in a duology that I did finish this month. I started and finished this duology in the same month. Pat on my back. Give me a round of applause, please, because when have I ever started and finished a series in the same month? When? So I started the Blood Trials duology by Annie Davenport. This is the other book that I mentioned that I wanted to read at the end of 2025, and that I didn't get to until now. So yeah, I read the first book, The Blood Trials, and then the second book, The Blood Gift. And this duology follows our main character, Akenna, who has lost her grandfather. Start the book off and it's like 3 months after his passing, and she's just like drinking all the time, going out to pubs, just like not really doing what she usually does in her day-to-day life, which is train to be a part of her hierarchy's military. She is a well-trained warrior, and she just graduated from the academy. And when you graduate from the academy in this world, you then go on to train to be a Praetorian, which is the name of their military. And she decided that she doesn't want to do that. She's too busy feeling sad. She doesn't want to do that, but she finds out that the way that her grandpa died might have not been natural. It might have been a murder. And the person who murdered him is actually a part of the Praetorian army. So she's like, okay, no, I need to get myself together. Let me go figure out who this is and kill him. So she goes through the training to be a Praetorian, which involves trials, as you could guess, because blood trials. And she slowly uncovers how her grandfather died. And she also becomes a Praetorian, like, through these trials. So we're following her and her journey there. And then the second book, I can't tell you about that one without spoiling, but we're going a completely different journey after the end of the first book story. So let me tell you, I gave the first book 4.5 stars. That is a great sci-fi fantasy. Oh my God, that was so good. I have not read a sci-fi in a long time. So I kind of went into this a little nervous about if I would like it, if I would be able to follow it all that well. I was kind of reading this book the slowest out of all the books I've read this month because it was a lot to digest when it came to like the world building and understanding like the different nations and the planets and all this stuff. Once I was in it though, I was in it. Like the story doesn't really give you any real breathing room. Once you're in it, you have no choice but to keep going deeper. Like once chapter 2 hit, we're already there. It made me want to read the story more. I feel like Akenna as a character is such a good portrayal of like a young Black girl who's just trying her best and doesn't really know how to do things perfectly. Like she's definitely a flawed character. She is abrasive. She's a little bit rude. She's very hot-headed. She's overly confident in her abilities. But at the end of the day, she's good at what she does. She just wants to figure out who killed her grandfather, and she will stop at nothing to get there. Like that's her end goal at the end of the day. And I appreciated that she was so focused to get there. Like there was no real side hustle besides like the trials, because that is why she's there. But she is one of, I think, my favorite main characters I've ever read from like a sci-fi fantasy book. And the way that she's so able to fight for the society that doesn't fight for her, because she is, they call it a different word in this series, but she's Black. This society just has majority white people, so they already look down on her and her standing because of her race. But then also she secretly has powers as well, so that's like another reason why someone might look down upon her, but those are kept a secret, so no one else knows about that. A lot of people have always looked down at her and her grandfather because her grandfather has such high standing in like the political realm of the book. And now that she is a young Black girl trying to kind of follow in his footsteps, not purposefully, but she does end up following in his footsteps, she's like getting ops everywhere when all she wants to do is help make the society better, actually be true to who they say that they are when it comes to like being powerful and offering equal opportunity to anyone. You know, she just, I feel like I'm rambling, but this book was really, really good. The world, I think that was my favorite part of the book. Like understanding the world and the politics of this world was so fascinating. I am obsessed with this world and I would read more stories in it. I honestly am begging an E. Davenport to write like a prequel series. There's so much in-depth lore that came with like the society and the politics of it all and how it came to be to the point that it is at in this duology. I would read so many other like short stories following other characters that we meet and how they became who they were in this book. It's so good. I can't give this book a full 5 stars because the trials I read a lot of books with trials, okay? Once you are in like fantasy dystopian books, like you kind of have no choice but to get through like some books that follow trials and the same formula that come with reading books about trials, you know? And I feel like with this book, it was hard for me to understand what was a trial and what wasn't. Like I didn't really understand that we were a part of like an actual trial that was happening until like 30% into the book. I was like, what is going on? And maybe that's because I wasn't really locked into the book fully, because again, it was hard for me to read at first because I was just trying to understand a lot of like the terminology and everything in the world and like kind of what the landscaping, you know? So maybe that's on me. Maybe if I reread it, then I would understand it better. But on a first read, it just wasn't making sense to me what these trials were. But yeah, I gave the first book a 4.5 and then I gave the second book a 3-star. The second book, I feel like its greatest flaw is that it was rushed. You can tell that this was meant to be a duology because the amount of stuff that is packed in this book made it feel so weird pacing wise. I did not understand how we got from point A to point B so fast in this book. A lot of things felt like they were meant to be fleshed out more and they weren't. And I don't know if it was maybe the publisher that told Annie Davenport that she can only do 2 books, or maybe it was her choice, but this should have been 3 books. And I'm never the person to say that. You guys know me, I'm so tired of trilogies, but this world that she has built, it's a disservice to it for her to make this only 2 books, especially when it comes to like Akena's story specifically and what she was trying to do. It felt incomplete. It felt like there was something else we were supposed to do to resolve everything, but then that's like the cliffhanger of it all. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Why are we ending on a big cliffhanger when you know it's not going to continue? Why would you do that? Yeah, it pissed me off. It pissed me off because the stuff that I wanted to see, it happens off page. We're never gonna get it again. Sick and twisted. I will say I did appreciate the romance more in this second book as opposed to the first one. I thought that the love interest in the first book was so annoying, and it's the same love interest in both books, but I couldn't understand their vibe in the first one because it's not really a romance. It's not these are not romantasy books. This is the straight up sci-fi fantasy book, but the romance subplot of it all, like the slow burn of it, chef's kiss. But I did not know how to feel about that love interest, and then the second book came and I was like, oh, okay, so these are low-key soulmates. Cool. So yeah, I think that this series would have benefited with 3 books instead of 2. But you know, with 2 books, it ended as well as I would have hoped, but it makes me want more, and not in a good way. I feel like we are definitely missing a part of the plot with how that second book ended, but I guess there's nothing I can do about it. You guys also know that I reread Bloodmarked for my friend, so I could annotate it and give it to him for his birthday. This is my copy of it. This is not the copy I annotated because he got that copy by now and he is currently reading it. But yeah, I reread Bloodmarked in the Legendborn cycle by Tracy Deonn. This is the second book in the series, and you guys know that this is like my least favorite in the series, so I have like nothing to really say about it. Also, I've talked about this series so much that you guys know I don't really need to talk about Legendborn anymore. I had a good time. Like, I don't know if you could tell because in my vlog I was saying how it was so hard for me to like actually get into it because I just wasn't in the mood to read this. I was reading Bloodmarked and the Blood Trials at the same time, and I'm not gonna lie, the stories kind of overlap each other and parallel each other a lot, so it was very hard for me to follow one after the other, and it was kind of difficult. But I did have a good time overall rereading this story and like being able to write my thoughts on the page. Anytime I could get to reread like any Legendborn book, I feel like I'm gonna have a good time. I would just do it next time when I'm more in the mood to do it, and when I'm not reading a book that's eerily similar to it. I don't think that's beneficial at all. My rating for this book hasn't changed on a reread. It's still at 3.75. On to the last book. I've been talking for over an hour. Aren't you sick of me? I know I am. So this book is a horror book. I read You Did Nothing Wrong by C.G. Drews. This book is an arc. It doesn't come out until I want to say March, but I got the audio again. I've been getting more into audiobooks lately. You guys know that this is my goal. So a lot of the arcs I've been getting through my job, I have been reading. Where do I start with this one too? I've like a lot of books this past month have left me speechless, I can't lie. This one follows Elodie, who is the mother to a 6-year-old boy named Jude. And Elodie is recently engaged to a man named Brendan, and they move into Brendan's parents' home, like his family home where he grew up. It was gifted to him in their will, and he's rebuilding it, and she's now living like a happy-go-lucky life, the life that she's always wanted for herself and for Jude. And then when she moves into this house, not everything is as happy-go-lucky as it seems. She's noticing some weird things happening in the house, like blood in the walls, or her son saying that there are voices talking to him at night. She just feels not safe in the house, and she's trying to figure out why that is and why this house is specifically targeting her. And as the book goes on, you understand Elodie's character a lot more and why she feels like this house is against her because of her past that comes to light as the book goes on. And this book also follows like her conflicts with motherhood and raising a son. It's just really, really good. I don't know how to explain it and not give too much away. That's the thing. I'm trying my best, and I feel like I'm not telling you guys anything about it, but this is my first C.G. Drews book. I know that C.G. Drews is known for more of their like YA horror, and I haven't read that. This is their, I think, adult horror debut. Expectations, I had none going in, but I enjoyed it a lot. I gave it 4 stars. I think that the audiobook really sold the experience of me reading this. This is the very haunting tale about like motherhood and what that really means to the main character. Like, yes, it's a horror book that involves like a haunted house aspect, but it's really just about like the ins and outs of motherhood and the dark side that comes to like devoting your whole entire life to another human being and what you would do for that human being. And it was frustrating to read. It was fun to read. It was uncomfortable to read at times, but that's what I was expecting. I also made it a goal this year to read more horrors, more thrillers, more mysteries, just like to get out of my comfort zone. And I do think the best way for me to read those types of books is maybe on audio. Any other books I can read physically or digitally. For horror, I think my best way of reading is audibly. But yeah, throughout this book, you just understand Elodie and like her trying to be the opposite of what she knew parenthood was growing up. Like, she didn't have the best upbringing as a child. Again, you get to know more about her past as the story goes on, so I'm not going to go into specifics, but like she tries to be everything that her parents were not for her or her child Jude, and she does that through unconventional methods that are not all that great. I'm not saying I like Elodie as a character. I actually thought that she was insufferable, but this is a way to write insufferable characters that I feel like So Old So Young did not do. It made me understand her. It made me feel for her. It made me hate her. But at the end of the day, I empathized with her situation. By the end of the book, I would not say I agreed with her methods of parenting. I wouldn't say I would agree with all of the decisions she made, but I liked her, I think. I liked her. I liked her story. And I loved being able to see the outcome of all of this. Like, because a lot of dark stuff happens to not only her, but her kid and her fiance throughout this book while living in this house. And I liked that there was like some type of like resolution at the end. This book was very scary. It made me uncomfortable. Like I said, I was listening to it all throughout my days while I was at work, while I was at home. And I was just like on the edge of my seat, especially towards like the last 30% of it. I couldn't deal with it. That was my last book of the month. I gave that 4 stars, and I will be reading more horror if you guys have any recommendations. I think I'm open to reading more C.G. Drew stuff, but like I said, I know that their other stuff is more focused towards like a younger audience. So if you have any recommendations as to what I should pick up, if you think I'll be interested in those, let me know. That's my video. I've been talking forever and now I need to like shut up and go lay down. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, thank you. Let me know what you guys read in January. I would love to know. With that being said, I will see you guys in my next video. Bye everyone.